between 7 and 11 minutes from now. If you choose to use this quick call.
Madam Chair, you are live.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call this meeting of the Quality of Life Committee to order. If I could have a roll call, please.
Councillor Garcia,
Present.
Madam Chair Cassia,
I'm here.
Councillor Faulkner,
Here.
and Councillor Castro,
Present.
and Councillor Chavez is excused.
Correct. So we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. I think there were no changes, if I am correct.
Councillor Castro, we are removing item A, removal of the approval of the May 1st Quality of Life Committee meeting minutes. There was a discrepancy and those will be added to the agenda on June 5th.
Perfect. So can I have a motion as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Yes. Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Madam Chair Cassia,
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner,
Yes.
and Councillor Castro.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move
You
on
have
to
a-
approval of the consent agenda. Was anything removed?
We have item G was pulled for discussion. It was pulled by Councillor Cassett, Councillor Garcia, and Councillor Castro.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call. Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Cassett,
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner,
Yes.
Councillor Castro,
Yes.
motion passed.
And the next thing on our agenda is a presentation. If we could please have Director Nell.
Thank you, Counselor and members of the committee. We'll go ahead and get started. Great to see you this evening. I'm here to give you all an update on grants in general that our office is focused on administering as well as deploying and receiving. So hopefully this gives you a high level picture of all of the activity that we have going on right now related to grants. For a snapshot, you can see up on the screen a sense of our team. We have our business development folks as well as workforce and broadband, asset development, and we are really lucky right now to have some Vista volunteers joining us, and then Loretta Olguin that helps us with business operations. A reminder that our mission is focused on how do we cultivate a vibrant business community and build a diverse, innovative economy that provides equitable opportunity and prosperity for the community. So you can see here, hopefully you can see that we are really focused right now on deploying ARPA dollars that were enacted by the Biden administration to focus on how do we as a local government support our economy, support our local businesses that were negatively impacted because of the COVID pandemic. And so here we are in 2024, and those needs have interestingly shifted. There have been supports and there have been resources that have been deployed on several different levels. And so we've had the ability to adjust our responses and our solutions, I think, which is a good thing to really get the funds and the resources out to the community. And I'll be going over, as a reminder, what that original project summary was that was submitted to U.S. Treasury. So you can see, if you think about it in 3 buckets, our office is focused on workforce, secondly, broadband and Wi-Fi accessibility, and the third bucket is small business assistance. I did put on there as well, we have a creative industries grant that we were awarded by the New Mexico Economic Development Department. We're in the process of applying for a Bloomberg Financial Empowerment Center grant. And then just as a recap, some successful grants that we received in the recent months were the National League of Cities, Good Jobs, Great Cities, U.S. Mayor's Conference, the DollarWise Innovation that went to support childcare, entrepreneurial training. And then we have successfully deployed the ARPA funding that went to support the Santa Fe Public Schools intern program. And are in the process of expanding that program currently. I provided a lot of information on this slide, so hopefully you'll be able to go into those. And if you have any questions, feel free and I'll go into more depth. The first part of the ARPA workforce grant was identified in our U.S. Treasury summary as Bright Futures Job Training Program. And this is focused on partnering with Santa Fe Community College with their trade certification program. So we are working with legal, we're working with procurement, we're working with SFCC to get a MOA that will come before you all, hopefully very soon, that provides support for SFCC in their trade certification programming, have a coordinator, as well as help promote their trade certification classes that they have that build up, as you can see, skills and key industries training. As well, the grant will provide subsidies for students that might be inhibited by fees, book costs, etc. The second bucket of the workforce programming was written to support how do we build back better business and workforce. And so we have just closed the first phase of several RFQs, requests for quotes, that address the following components. So the first one is focused on literacy training. The next one is food systems, entrepreneurial and business development. Then we have college and career preparation, film workforce development, also deploying a workforce strategic action plan and addressing barriers to workforce. And so I'll go through each one of these just if you want to get the highlight of what these RFQs are addressing. So the workforce literacy training, we just wrapped up that RFQ process, really focused on collaborating with an organization locally to strengthen youth literacy skills to increase workforce opportunities. The second, related to food systems and entrepreneurial training, is looking at how we can support our entrepreneurs that are operating in food systems, as well as local urban ag production, and how do we make sure that they have the skills that they need as employees as well as employers. The third, relating to college preparation and career pathway. This is about providing opportunities for high school and college age populations for career discovery and college prep. And our next one, related to film, is working with an organization to help develop film crew skills training and providing those opportunities, especially for our socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. And here you can see the amounts that these requests for quotes are encompassing, around the $50,000 mark. And I'll remind members of the committee that these proposals and these partnerships, we have encumbered the funds, but through ARPA regulations, the local government as well as our recipients, there's a 2-year performance period that enacts at the end of this calendar year. And you can see that our strategic workforce plan, we do have we are reviewing those those proposals currently, which we're really excited about, to have a strategic workforce plan that our partners in our organizations can and work with us together and collaboratively. The second bucket that I mentioned that we are focused on is broadband and Wi-Fi accessibility. The first phase, if you might recall, was focused on deploying Wi-Fi towers to service low-income and underserved areas in Santa Fe. Our most recent installation was in Trailer Ranch, located on Cerrillos. And now we have an open request for quotes to bring on a broadband and Wi-Fi accessibility coordinator to help our office really have a strategic plan of how we are going to take advantage of the numerous federal opportunities that are coming down the pipe. How can we work with our partners, especially regionally and locally, to make sure that our businesses have proper broadband and especially for our residents to have Wi-Fi accessibility. And the last bucket to mention is really our biggie. This one is the business technical assistance. Again, this is very much focused on how do we help strengthen and diversify our small business community. And we have developed programming based off of the Small Business Administration's program called Community Navigator. And we will hopefully be entering into a contract with a university or a local government to help us deploy a business service navigator program. As well, within the TA bucket, we also are working on a Go Local campaign that will help message and promote shopping locally, keeping dollars here in our community. We are working with our regional partners to make sure that that online entrepreneur resource hub that is currently online continues and it is improved. As well, we are in talks to explore the Tribal Entrepreneur Support Program through UNM's Rainforest and a number of other things that we'll be presenting as well. And then the second part of the business technical assistance is written to provide financial support to small businesses through small micro grants and a revolving loan program. In fact, our office was in a conversation today with North Central New Mexico Economic Development District, as well as the county and the Regional Development Corporation, that NCNMEDD currently has a revolving loan program, as well as RDC has a micro grant program. And we are currently exploring supporting those programs and collaborating to better serve our businesses in Santa Fe. And then I'm wrapping up just to give you a highlight of the Creative Industries Grant. This RFQ is live. If you know of organizations that are experienced in providing entrepreneurial support to artists and organizations in the creative industries, we are looking for a coordinator to help us develop and deploy very similarly to what I just mentioned around a community navigator program that is able to act as a hub and bring together the organizations that support entrepreneurs to get information out to underserved communities and entrepreneurs. This coordinator will help us develop networking opportunities for our community, identify the top industry needs within creative industries, map our assets. This question comes up a lot, even in economic development, where are the performance spaces, where are the studios, etc. We also will be able to develop an industry project pipeline to identify the top projects within creative industries that we can help market and facilitate connections to resources, like a community theater that might be looking for additional funds to complete their project. And then deploying community engagement events that are geographically focused, especially in low-income areas like Hopewell, Man, Southside, and Silo Rufina, and develop and deploy bilingual promotion and educational collateral. And that wraps up an overview of ARPA. If you can tell, we're very much focused and putting a lot of energy and effort into our ARPA deployment and encumbrance. And I want to remind folks that it's really important to stay connected with our office. We put out a lot of information, not only for businesses, but community development partners. You can sign up for our newsletter and some upcoming events that we have. Doing Business in Santa Fe 101, which is a collaboration between us, land use, members from our city attorney's office will be in attendance to offer people support. And what's that? Wrap up?
No, I'm so sorry. And you had a training yesterday as well, right?
We had a food training in the food systems at the Santa Fe Business Incubator, which was great. We had a good turnout. And that as well was providing support for folks to navigate city processes and how to get started, which can be daunting to folks sometimes. And we also have a coffee and collaboration coming up June 6th. We'll also be using that time to wish our community development director adieu and honor Rich's service and tenure at the city. And that's also an opportunity for economic development folks to network. And we currently have a workforce survey for employers. So I've got to make this shameless plug. We've got events coming up, and I'll turn it over to you, Counselor, and members of the committee for questions.
Well, thank you so much, Director Nelson. I appreciate this. And yes, this is something I'm very excited about, and we've done some really amazing work. I do have a couple clarifying questions, but I'll let other counselors ask them first. Does anyone have questions on Zoom?
I do. Yes. Thank you, Chair Castro. Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Joan, good to see you. You started out the presentation talking about grants that you're going after, and I noticed that there wasn't any major kind of granting entities that were applying for, such as the U.S. Economic Development Administration, the state of New Mexico. I know that there's plenty of grants out there available. Why aren't we seeking resources from whether it be federal or state?
Counselors, members of the committee, I love this question. I have a background in development finance. If you want to get things done in local government, you've really got to be entrepreneurial and go after resources and grants. Right now, we are so focused on getting our ARPA dollars out that is taking a lot of energy and effort and focus. I would hope by the end of the summer, beginning of fall, we can really start to see the products of our pilot programming, of the programming that we're supporting with ARPA, that we can show that it's working. We'll have empirical data. There's a need for it that we then can go to EDA, we can go to DFA and say, you know what, this is working. We need additional funding. And I will say too that the conversation we had with North Central and the county today was really fascinating, related to their revolving loan fund that they have at North Central. That's funded through EDA. And that program has laid dormant for a while due to capacity issues at North Central. But by supporting that program, getting it revitalized, would put us and our community in a really good position to get more support from EDA.
Okay. And is it, I believe we should have everything out the door by 25, right? For ARPA funds. So, I mean, that's next year. And the way the grant world works is that you apply this year for funding next year. And from my position where I said I would want us to be applying as soon as possible. That way there isn't that gap. And I understand the rationale of having data to support, but I think the existing data can support an application today. And so I just don't want us to be leaving resources on the table because I know that in the grant world, we can have a plentiful pot of resources, and then the pot can shrivel and shrink up. And I would not want us to be in the position to begin to apply when the pot is starting to shrivel up, and then there's more competition for those resources. So if there's anything I can do to help, I mean, I think it's one of those, even if we're not applying for a grant at the time, having it on our radar in regards to, well, we're not going to apply for grant XYZ now, but here are the requirements. Here's what's going to be needed once we're ready to go, because writing a grant is not a simple process. It's a technical art. And you want to make sure that whenever it's go time, you're submitting the best product possible, and looking at it from the lens of, okay, if we're not going to apply now, then let's use this as a test run and see what we have in place, what we don't have in place. Because as a person who's been a funder, I've seen more times than not that an applicant be submitting a rushed package at the 11th hour, and you know that that applicant can do better. And I would want the city of Santa Fe to be in the strongest position possible. So if there's anything I can encourage in regards to, let's at least see what the horizon is for availability, and at least map out, this is what's available this year. This is what might be available next year. We're going to go after X, Y, and Z next year. And if you've got such a plan, happy to explore that. But I think that's especially in the grant world, because it takes so long for the funding to come down, similar to legislative appropriations. It's not like you get the grant in 2 days, it's in your bank account. It's a process. And sometimes the funds are available over a multiple year period. So that was the question on that. So thank you for the clarification. Strategic workforce plan. Can you explain a little more about what that entails? Is that the city's strategic workforce plan? Is it for the broader Santa Fe area? What does that entail?
Counselor, members of the committee, the strategic workforce plan that we are looking to bring on help for us to develop that is focused on Santa Fe. And so really, this is an effort to align our partners' efforts. If you recall the presentation from Somos and Pueblo Unido that has the Gateways for Growth plan, this would be, that's one plan in an orchestra that has North Central, the state's workforce solutions just put out a plan, the county. So having our own strategic workforce plan not only gives us direction based off of feedback and empirical economic data, but it also gives us a chance to incorporate the plans that are already out there. We're not duplicating efforts, and we can get our local crew on board. So we're working in chorus versus disparate efforts.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And because it's Santa Fe in general, not the city, it's the broader Santa Fe, are we partnering up with entities like Santa Fe County, Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce, the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, other neighboring counties, other neighboring tribal communities? Because so much of our workforce relies upon our neighbors, whether they travel here to work or vice versa, right? We've got folks commuting from Santa Fe to Los Alamos to work. That's still part of our workforce in some sense, because it's contributing to our local economy. So I guess the question is, who are the strategic partners at the table?
Counselor, members of the committee, we have a lot.
Okay.
And the good thing is we've got really strong relationships, not only with our local players like the chambers that you just mentioned, we also have our regional partners that you just mentioned. So you're exactly right. The County of Santa Fe, we have biweekly calls with our regional economic development organizations, which includes Los Alamos, Santa Fe County, Rio Arriba, Taos even, San Miguel is at the table. And so, and even Albuquerque as well. And so we are very well positioned to incorporate them and collaborate. That's exactly why we want to do this, is make sure that we're utilizing their planning. They're in lockstep with us every phase.
Great.
And I will mention, Counselor, if I may, we want to bring the consultant on to not only help us analyze the economic data and perform economic analyses, but we want to have that framework that's enabling us to have the community engagement formally that you have to with a strategic plan, where we are going out not only to our organizations, but the community as well, to understand what are the barriers, what are our strengths, et cetera. So
Okay. And when do we have planned to have this completed?
Councilor members of the committee, we're reviewing the proposals right now. And so I've seen estimates presented anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So I would hope somewhere in the median, we could have something together.
Okay, that's good time frame. And I think in addition to that, is the workforce plan incorporating feedback from like local nonprofits? Just because I know, there are sometimes revenue streams available, and I'm looking at one of the major ones right now is the Mackenzie Scott Foundation, where I don't think they've given any, and maybe Rich, you can correct me. I think they give primarily to nonprofits, but just because the city's not an eligible applicant, we should be pushing everybody in that direction to bring more resources to our community. Because when we have a cross-community collaboration, you can't rely upon one entity to get the job done. It's in all of us need to get the job done, which means local government, state government, federal government, local nonprofits, local faith-based organizations. It's a kind of all hands on deck effort. And so I guess, let me ask you the question, are we helping other nonprofits apply for funding to help with the lift that's needed in our community?
Councilor members of the committee, yes. Short answer is yes. If you mean, are we providing the technical assistance for them to write the grant? No, but we provide those connections to the organizations that provide the TA for grant. So that's North Central, DFA, Municipal League. There are numerous organizations that are providing that support for grant writing specifically. And it's fascinating that you asked that question, because so much of our work is around making connections to resources, not just entrepreneurs, but the nonprofits that provide those social services. And in fact, Director Sanchez Tucker and Councilor Cassett, as well as some folks from our team, were talking about an event that we're planning as part of a grant that we won through the National League of Cities, Good Jobs, Great Cities initiative, to address social barriers within our workforce. So we're bringing together probably around 30 different stakeholders and nonprofits to understand where are the gaps, how's it going, touch in, what do you need, et cetera, make connections and network to then provide an event, a public event for the community, for families, for community members to come and get connected directly to those organizations, like summer camps that provide after, summer childcare, all the way to housing assistance, down payment assistance, et cetera. The list goes on. But long story short is yes, that's a big part of what we do, is make connections, because to your point, one of our biggest challenges in our community is lack of awareness about the resources that are out there.
And I can't speak for my colleagues, but I know I would be interested in that event that you're speaking about. So I'll connect with you offline to learn more about that. Community engagement, you mentioned Hopewell Man and Siler Arts area. Can you share a little more what you plan to do in regards to community engagement?
Yeah, regarding Councilor, members of the committee, Councilor, regarding the strategic workforce plan?
No, you had mentioned it was the I think maybe the creative industries and part of that action was community engagement. And then you had identified Hopewell Man and the Siler area. I'm very interested in this Hopewell Man because it's in my district, and definitely want to just learn more what is being planned. And are you engaging the counselors from those districts that are that are representing those particular areas and those constituencies?
Counselor, members of the committee, the community engagement piece specifically for the creative industries grant that we were awarded from the New Mexico Economic Development Economic Development Department. When we submitted our application, we identified that, and I'm trying to keep this short. We identified that again, one of the biggest challenges that our community as a whole encounters is lack of awareness that there are loan subsidies, that there's a collateral assistance program, that there's a small business technical assistance. The list goes on regarding resources and supports that are available to entrepreneurs and small businesses. In economic development, our point of view has been, we have our electronic channels, we have email, we have social media that we do an okay job at. We can always get better. We have, we can take an industry approach. And in this regard, it's focused on creative industry. And then we also recognize that we can take a geographic approach where we can go into the neighborhood, work with the organizations, work with the counselors in that area to create a family-friendly, community-supported event to bring people out that I guarantee you don't read our newsletters and they don't, consume information as other pockets of our audience, I guess, and community. So that RFQ is live right now. We haven't identified a successful applicant yet, but when they do, we will be working on them to develop the program that 100% would be working with the counselors, with the trusted organizations that serve those immediate neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Last question, still in the creative industries topic. Just today, there was a press notice that went out around the RFP for the old Warehouse 21 facility. That was the first I had heard of it. I found out via press release, which that wasn't the case. So Mike, I've got a lot of questions about that, and so we can have a lot of questions, conversation offline. But the one question I do want to ask is, why such a quick turnaround? I mean, there's a public meeting being held next week. And then the application deadline for this is the middle of June 19th, if I remember correctly. And for, again, getting back to kind of the grant writing process, RFP process, to have a highly competitive proposal put together, and especially if there's going to be a kind of a collaborative effort on an application put forth, you're going to need more than that. So why such a short time period? Because I think that's a space that historically means a lot to a lot of folks. It was a very pivotal space for a lot of youth in our community. And then unfortunately, the services went away for certain reasons. And I know that it's been recently utilized by PD and fire department for exercises, but there's always been that kind of unknown of, can this come back as a youth opportunity center? I don't know, maybe somebody will put forth that, but I think to have the best submissions possible, is there any way we can push that out to July-ish? Just because I think, again, you're asking for somebody to come with a proposal in roughly 3 weeks. And as somebody who has done this type of work, that means an entity is going to have to drop what they're doing at the moment, stop all that work to get this work done. And I think that's unfair for both the applicant and the receivers, the recipients of the services of the applicants. And yeah, I think this is an issue. So I guess 2 questions. 1, can that be extended? 2, is it solely for what is the intention? Is it for lease? Is it for sale? what is, because I have not read the RFP just because it came out today, or it might, those answers are probably in there, but I've got you in front of me, Ms. Nelson, so that's why I'm asking you. I apologize. But those are the two big questions that I immediately popped to my mind. And I know many people of the public have that same question.
Counselor, members of the committee, thanks for the question. I'm thrilled that you read our email. You at least are on our email chain, so that's great news. We did announce that RFP today in collaboration with our office, Arts and Culture and Community Development as a whole. And the intention of that RFP is the lease of that city asset, which the city owns that building. It's been dormant for several years. And so lease management and as well as the rehabilitation of that facility, it needs a number of repairs. So looking for the respondent to be able to provide development support. And regarding timing, we followed the state procurement's suggested template, which provides a calendar of activities going to, okay, you release the RFP, then 7 days later, you have the pre-proposal conference. And so we followed that template. As you mentioned, the request for proposals will be completed on the application period will complete on June 19th. And that's when our ability, once that period closes, we'll be able to identify, did we mess up by having a short period? Do we need to reopen it? Do we have enough qualified bidders? And we can explore that, because to your point, we want to find the most capable, feasible partner that's going to be able to operate that for the community's good, to hopefully support youth entrepreneurship, economic development, community development in that space. And I don't know if Director Brown wants to mention anything.
Thank you, Director Nelson. Good evening, everyone. And Councilor Garcia, that's a very good question. I have just made a note that we can look into that to extend the period of time. There are a number of candidates who have called us over the last year and a half looking at this space. But we can go back to procurement and legal to see if we can extend it beyond the 3-week window, just based upon your comments that the complexity of what we're looking for, because it is lease and management. So as a scenario, someone could lease the building and have lots of small tenants related to the creative industry. So that's finding partners, figuring out their plan. How do you get the funding running? How do you figure out your improvement plan, et cetera? So that's something we can take away today and get back to you in the next meeting that's coming up, so we can figure that out. But that's a very good question, and we can look into that.
Okay, just because now I would highly encourage us extending it, knowing that there are individuals that have reached out, encouraging us to figure out what's going on. I'm sure that these folks were, and let me ask the question, were these folks aware this RFP was coming?
Yes, they've been waiting for it for months.
So that provides preferential treatment, in my opinion, to folks. And that just
There's
a
no
black shadow over this.
Counselor, there's no preference though. We didn't give them a date when the RFP is going out. It's just people are inquiring, and we had an open house. But there's no preference. It's just that this is the template, as she stated, from the state for this lease and management lease RFP. So everyone has the same information. There's no preference of you get to preview things or ask questions, that sort of thing. It's just really a matter of people calling and saying, hey, when's your RFP coming out?
Right. Well, I guess maybe preferential treatment is the wrong term, but advance notice. I mean, and so there's nothing that prohibits us from the city as saying, okay, on, like, for example, today's press release saying on June 19th, we're going to open the RFP. That way folks have a month to connect, collaborate. And then once the 19th hit, it's go time. And you begin to understand what the criteria is, et cetera. Because I mean, again, I'm stepping back into in the grant world where I work in. We do that all the time. We say this NOFA is going to open at a certain period of time, and you allow for the public to be aware of it. Then once the NOFA is open, because at a certain point, similar to an RFP, kind of hands are tied, lips are sealed. You can't provide any technical assistance or support to anything. So like right now, questions come, you got to say, go to the RFP for answers. Whereas prior, you can say, well, you can provide some technical assistance as long as you're doing it in an equitable manner across the board. So I would highly encourage us extending this, given that this notice was given that the RFP was live versus a notice of an RFP is coming. And then tandem with that, there are entities within the city that were aware that an RFP was coming. And there were many, 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 many others that were not aware that an RFP was coming. And that concerns me because some of those folks that are not in the know that are probably the most in need, that can most benefit from a space like this, have to rush in a 3-week time period. And I don't think that's fair for folks. So I guess the last question revolves around a resolution we had passed a couple years back when we deal with disposition of property of the city, and this one in this particular disposition in the terms of lease. I can't remember if that resolution specifically stated lease. I know it said any sale, but if it did say lease, there should have been a consent of the governing body saying, we're going to approve moving forward with the former Warehouse 21 building in X, Y, and Z manner. I know that we had been consulted in the past as there was a potential sale of the property, et cetera. That wasn't the case with this RFP. And similar to you, Director Brown, I know there's always been folks saying, what's going on with that facility? Because it's not only prime time real estate, but it's in a location, central location that can provide critical services to our community, whether it be economic development services, because immediate things pop into mind like incubator hubs, right? Small business incubator hubs, small, low-cost artisan spaces. I mean, and I think that's where we're going with this potentially. I don't know. We'll see what the RFP, the applicants submit, but I want to ensure that anybody and everybody has equal opportunity in being awarded an RFP or have an opportunity to be awarded this RFP and not feel like they're under pressure to get something in because they don't want to miss out. So yes.
Counselor, members of the committee, I do want to point out that we did provide in our newsletters notice for several months, and I can confirm how many months, that an exciting opportunity to lease prime real estate in the rail yard was coming. And so I know that to your concern, it's one drop to address that, but that was our way to hopefully stimulate some type of awareness without giving away, as you know, extra knowledge or information to the community that something was coming. And I think both of us are keen and eager to make sure we get a strong applicant. So we'll definitely look into your concern and see if there are opportunities to extend it.
So to that, my question is there anything that would have prohibited us from explicitly saying there's going to be this fantastic opportunity with the former Warehouse 21 building? Is it legal, something legally that would have prohibited us from doing that?
Councilor Garcia and members of the council, I know that the New Mexican also made an announcement. They called us when she's talked about the economic development newsletters that went out. People are calling because they saw it in the newsletter. So it has reached. I think there's 6,000 plus people who get this.
9,000.
9,000 people get this newsletter. So there's a broad reach of our community, 10%. Plus the New Mexican also had a feature or an article about this coming out in the paper that's coming soon. It's coming on Wednesday. So there has been some outreach from that standpoint. So that part is where I know that it has been out there. I can't say that we've reached every single person, but the people who will be able to capably respond to an RFP, they were at least on your mailing list or probably saw it in the paper. And that's sort of the complexity of this building, that you have to be capable of operating and improving the building. Secondly, I see Mr. Martinez in the room, and I don't want to call him out, but you had asked a question about the resolution. The resolution is for sale of property and not
Okay.
necessarily lease. So that's kind of where we are from that standpoint. So the lease piece, because it's an RFP too. It's
Right. Gotcha. Okay. No, I definitely appreciate it. And kudos on the mailing list of 9,000 people. That's a great reach. But we want to make sure we provide that opportunity for everybody. And I can only speak for myself, but I was not aware of it. And somebody reached out to me previous to today's announcements. I would have said, what are you talking about? And that's not a good space to put a counselor in to say, wait, we know this is happening. And so I would just ask for just a little courtesy of giving us a heads up that this is coming down the pipe. But thank you for coming in front of us tonight. Lots of work in your department. I hope you're bringing on extra staff, because it's a heavy lift to get all of this work done, especially when you get into the grant writing world. It can be a time consumer for a person. It really takes a team of folks. So just thank you for everything you're doing. Wish you all the best. And no other questions. Thank you, Director Brown. Thank you, Director Nelson. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course, thank you, Counselor. And I do want to just take the opportunity to mention that Chair Cassett had to jump off, so she is no longer on the Zoom, but thank you very much for her time. I do have a couple questions, but point well taken. And I did know that this was coming up because I was in conversation with Director Nelson and also with Arts and Culture, but I think it's important that the rest of the community has enough time to apply. And so we'll do our best to make sure that that is a goal that we reach. I did have some questions around who our partners were, but you did answer that. So thank you very much. A little bit about the rubric in terms of underserved areas and how we're defining some of these areas of need.
Counselor, members of the committee, thanks for that question. When we say underserved in our world of economic development, that can mean a lot of different things. Underserved, and I think are you referencing the creative industries, the creative industries grant that we're talking about, the community?
Yes, in particular, I think you were talking about the Wi-Fi program.
Wi-Fi program. Okay. That looked at low income areas that were below that show a majority of their residents as under poverty level. And I will take a moment to say underserved can mean a number of things related. And I'm looking at Director Brown because I know he's been involved very much with this topic as well, especially writing the project summary. And I will just say super quickly that I think probably a more accurate word that's used, I know specifically in the Biden administration, how they have deployed ARPA and some of the federal funding as SSBCI funding, for example, they use the term socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, which also applies to business certifications if you do 8A, but that looks at can an individual prove that they have been socially or economically disadvantaged due to a number of issues, whether that's geographic, economic, gender, sexual preference, the list goes on. And that's how SBA defines that. And I don't want to get into the topic necessarily now, but I don't know if you want to provide, because I'll keep going.
That's okay. Castro, the other way when we started the Wi-Fi project was just before COVID hit. And we use what they called a high vulnerability index, which is using the census tracts that show high poverty, high unemployment, and low economic mobility. And so those areas that we were looking at are targeting for Wi-Fi were mostly mobile home parks. We're very high vulnerable from that standpoint. So the two that have been completed so far are in mobile home parks, where at that time the choice between connectivity and food was a very high vulnerable option. So that's why we sort of stuck from that standpoint. So when you, Director Nelson probably has the map now, but there's a map that we created that shows all these highly vulnerable areas and how we targeted them for that.
Wonderful. And I would encourage us to continue using that map as we think about how we're planning for the future, since we do have that information. I appreciate you. I think you did a great job between the questions that Counselor Garcia had and the information you gave us. You answered all my questions. Does Counselor Faulkner, do you have any other questions before we move on with
No,
Director
I'm good.
Nelson? All right. Awesome. Thank you so very much. We appreciate you.
Counselor, members of the committee, thank you so much. I love talking about economic development. So anytime you want to talk about classifications and all sorts of data, I'm here.
And
Grant
once again,
writing.
thank you so much for the language access and the great trainings.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Our next item, I believe, is G, the only thing that was pulled off of consent.
That's correct. Item G is what was pulled for discussion.
I believe several of us pulled this off of consent. Counselor Garcia, would you like to start?
Well, I think we need to have a motion, or we don't, ultimately we don't, but I have an amendment that we'll need a motion for later, so I don't have any comments. I just have a amendment that I'd like to move forward at some point.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
So second. And
We still have some discussion, so I think first we need to vote on the amendment and we'll need a motion for that amendment.
yeah, so there's a motion on the floor we can discuss now, and who was the floor, Madam Chair?
Counselor Faulkner, do you have any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, then you do, Counselor Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I mentioned during our Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting, I had amendment that was coming forth, and I definitely want to send my appreciation to the City Attorney's Office for getting this prepared and for tonight's meeting. So just popped into the packet if you've got the packet open, I would encourage folks to refresh and reopen the item. But the context of this amendment is around ensuring safe access to the medians that are proposed to be off limits. And so the way the amendment reads, and I'm going to pull it up now. And so the first, sorry, the computer's a little slow. So I'm going to be going off of the red line version. And so on page 1, line 22, I'm proposing to add the language for more than 2 opportunities to cross. So it would read, it shall be illegal for any individual to sit or stand or lie in any median for less than 36 inches for more than 2 opportunities to cross. And ultimately what that means is we have some roadways that are very wide, and especially when we're looking at the disability community or maybe elders in our community, the timing of a street light might not be enough for somebody to safely cross the roadway. And so allowing for an individual to be at a median, making their way across the roadway shows that they are not intending to be in violation, but they're just safely trying to cross. And that's where I've proposed to allow for the two opportunities to cross the roadway. In addition, I've added into section C, which gives some exceptions to the proposal. And the exceptions would be any person legally crossing the roadway. So that pertains kind of to the first portion of the amendment. As long as somebody's trying to make their way across the road legally, they wouldn't be fined or held accountable for this law. The second one is B, any person engaged in law enforcement or rescue activities, including providing assistance to an injured or disabled person or vehicle. And so in an instance that roadway that median need to be used as a rescue operation, they're not going to be held in violation of this proposal. And then lastly, a person engaged, any person engaged in emergency repair or maintenance activities of a vehicle. So if for some reason somebody's car breaks down right there at the median, sometimes it's safer to be right there on the median versus sitting in your car. So that in this instance, they would not be found in violation either. So those are the changes that I'm proposing to this bill. So with that, I'll make a motion to adopt Amendment B.
I will second that motion. Can we have a roll call on the amendment, please?
Counselor Faulkner,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Castro,
Yes.
motion passed.
So do we have any discussion now with the resolution as amended? Any questions for Assistant City Attorney Martinez? Counselor Faulkner?
Nope.
Counselor Garcia?
No questions. Thank you. City Attorney Martinez.
And City Attorney, I just have one final question. Do we have any updated numbers on any of the current jaywalking tickets or on how many incidents with vehicles and pedestrians are specifically around medians?
Counselor Kessler, Counselor Castro, members of the committee, I'm sorry, Officer Grundler has not gotten me updated numbers yet, but I'll check in with him tomorrow and perhaps I can circulate that information to the committee.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Counselor Garcia.
Thank you, Councilor, Madam Chair Castro. On that, in that same vein, City Attorney Martinez, can we have the Public Works team as well identify those medians that would fall into this? I think it was like 47, but they hadn't been identified. If we can have that list fully prepared for the packet for next week's governing body meeting, that would be great. Just because I've got a lot of questions from constituents, and if we can have that list in the packet, I think it helps everybody else out.
Very good. Counselor Garcia, I'll communicate with Director Wheeler about that.
Okay.
Expeditiously.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Perfect. So I think we're ready for a vote. If I could get that roll call, please.
All right, Counselor, Madam Chair Castro,
No.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner,
Yes.
motion passed.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Martinez. I think the next item on our agenda, we do not have executive session, matters from staff.
Thank you, Counselor Castro, and good evening, members of the committee. I just wanted to announce that the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board is hosting a youth career fair on May 25th from 11 to 4 in conjunction with our community partners. And this is a really exciting event that came about from recommendations from our last youth summit and ways that youth can be more involved in getting jobs and opportunities for youth. So we look forward to that. I also wanted to share with you today that Director Julie Sanchez and I were able to accompany our consultant, Dr. Kathleen Van Voorhees, to Espanola to tour their Pathways homeless shelter, and kind of just in a spirit of learning and hearing about issues they're facing and how we can continue to support homelessness solutions in Santa Fe. So that was a very interesting site visit. And Kristen Woods is our new program manager in Youth and Family Services with with Director Sanchez. I upgraded her position. But she's wonderful and we're excited to have her on board in our community. So thank you. That's all I have.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Councilor Garcia and Councilor Faulkner. I just have a couple of things, and it's been interesting because I'm trying not to have a countdown clock, but there's so much going on that I just can't think about that. But from the economic development standpoint, I think that Director Nelson outlined some of the key events that are coming up for the community, and I want to just push out two. One is that we have office hours happening at the Business Incubator on June 3rd. So we have office hours there. So if you know anyone who's looking to talk about entrepreneurship, who's looking for resources, they can come to the business incubator, and there'll be staff there from 9 to 5 at the business incubator. Additionally, she talked about Everyone Loves a Party in June, and it's June 6th, the Coffee and Collab breakfast event that's happening at the Farmers Market Pavilion. On the planning and land use side, on the 10th of June, we have our first annual inaugural meeting of our developer construction architectural planning community for land use. We're calling it Built for the Future, and it's going to start at 8 o'clock on the 10th at the Convention Center. And then lastly, the Office of Affordable Housing has been sending me lots of emails, and we've been signing off on our housing trust fund allocations that are coming to you through the committee. I think they start next Wednesday. You'll start to see some of the housing trust allocations that are coming through. So there's quite a lot of them, and so it's exciting because we're ready to distribute money out to the community. So, and one of them includes Lamplighter. So we're very excited about that. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Matters from the committee. Counselor Faulkner?
Nothing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Counselor Garcia?
Just one thing. Thank you, Director Sanchez Tucker and your team for the quick changing of the hours, in particular to the therapy pool. I don't believe you were on board as in your current capacity when we ran into the therapy pool challenges last time. And as you can see, a lot of folks utilize that space. So I really appreciate accommodating folks' schedule and allowing for those hours to be changed.
Garcia, yes, it is a huge challenge, but we think we have modified some things to make it available, and knowing that that's a really important need for the community. We're going to make that happen. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Nothing else, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Right. So then I will move on to matters from the chair. And I just want to thank everyone for all the amazing work this week. I went to an amazing coffee and collab this week. There was a training that I didn't get to make it to yesterday in Spanish language around food industry. So I'm just ecstatic with the Office of Economic Development. I also want to invite everyone to the State of the City tomorrow at 5:30. So please check that out. And with that, I think we are adjourned until May 5th. Thank you.